I'm all out, yeah. I've given out all the cards. So if you have cards that you want to share with somebody who doesn't have cards, feel free to do so. There's markers up at the front.
Do y'all need markers?
Yeah, just write senior women.
Do y'all need markers?
On the inside. Just the red and green are all right there.
Oh, just red and green?
Yeah. Yeah. For the teachers.
Hello everyone, my name is Ava, and today I'll be doing a presentation on sexual harassment awareness. And I'm also a senior, by the way. And so today I'll be addressing the root causes of sexual harassment, which are because of the lack of education, lack of awareness, and also the lack of confidence in victims for being able to speak out against these type of events. And there's one more thing. Also, yes, just remembered. Sexual harassment happens to everyone, but for this presentation specifically, I'll be focusing on women. There's on average 463,634 victims ages 12 or older of rape and sexual assault each year in the United States. That's almost 500,000 women, 500,000 people. I just want you guys to think about that number just for a few seconds. Some more statistics. Ages 12 through 34 are the highest risk years for rape and sexual assault, and females ages 16 through 19 are 4 times more likely than the general population to be victims of rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault. Now let's get into the objectives. So today's objectives, we will be defining sexual harassment, and we will be finding out different types of sexual harassment, as well as the main places where it occurs. And we will also be discussing the effects of sexual harassment and where and what places they mainly occur, like the workplace and universities. And we will also be discussing inflammations against sexual harassment and workplace and campus safety and prevention. So defining sexual harassment. Sexual harassment means inappropriate and unwanted behavior and remarks. So sexual harassment is a very broad term, and it deviates into many things. So it deviates into sexual abuse, demeaning and insulting language, sexual assault and violence, which leads into rape and molestation, and stalking as well. Some of you may be wondering, how does stalking relate to sexual harassment? Well, an example would be the Golden State Killer, who used to peep through his victims' windows, who were all female, by the way, and then he would sexually assault them afterwards. Okay, places where sexual harassment occurs. So sexual harassment can honestly occur anywhere, but the main places would be in workplaces and in universities as well. So sexual harassment effects. So effects of sexual harassment are anxiety, depression, PTSD, headaches, sleep disorders, weight loss or gain, nausea, lowered self-esteem, suicidal thoughts, and severe distress. So all these effects have an effect on the victim's personal and social lives and can affect their relationships with their family, friends, and coworkers. And victims are also more likely to use drugs than the general public. And all in all, it can derail women and other victims from focusing on their jobs and their education. So, sexual harassment in the workplace. Sexual harassment in the workplace happens for many reasons, the main reason being how it's mainly for power and not necessarily sexual desire. For instance, there's evident power differences and sex discrimination, especially among women in the work industry, which puts women in a more vulnerable and insecure position and or leaves them to suffer in silence. An example would be when a man starts to view a woman as his economic competitor and starts to harass her and expresses his resentment and reassertion for control by taunting and demeaning her with insults. This also fuels the issue, the lack of confidence in victims in speaking up for themselves due to being afraid of what may happen if they do speak up, and also the feeling of shame from the violation and remarks. And victims would also not want to be humiliated in front of their peers and families. And also, sexual harassment can affect employers and the economy in the long run, since people who get harassed, they tend to leave the workplace and resign from their jobs. Okay. Workplace sexual harassment implementations. So the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 makes it illegal for employers to allow anyone to be sexually harassed at work by anyone else regardless of sex, gender, or sexual orientation. So the left column is what Title VII does and who it applies to. So Title VII makes bosses accountable for providing a non-harassment and discrimination-free work environment, and bosses have to stop harassment once they know it's happening. And Title VII also makes it illegal for bosses to allow harassment to continue, and also it makes it illegal for people to punish victims for speaking out or taking legal action. And so Title VII does not apply to people whose bosses have fewer than 15 workers, and also independent contractors and self-employed individuals. And Title VII does not give people the right to sue an individual person, but will only allow it if the harasser is their boss. So that's like the only exception for that. What you can do if you or someone you know experiences sexual harassment in the workplace. So number one, you can communicate with the person doing the harassment. You can also record it for future reference because you never know when you may need it. You can report it internally by reporting it to a trusted supervisor or your employer. You can also report it externally to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC, and or to your local EEOC field office to learn about your rights, resources, and or to file a charge. Number 5, you can also contact a lawyer and take legal action. And number 6, you can request improved internal policies. So an example would be requesting that your employer implement staff trainings on sexual harassment and bystander intervention. So, sexual harassment in universities. Sexual harassment is very apparent in universities. More specifically, sexual violence is. In fact, sexual violence is more prevalent compared to other petty crimes like robberies. So among female undergraduate students, 26.4% of females experience rape or sexual assault, while among female graduates and professional students, 9.7% experience the same exact thing. So some examples of what they experience would be the use of violence, the use of physical force, and or incapacitation. In addition, numerous studies have shown that rape in particular is very common on campuses, but only 89% of colleges and universities but 89% of colleges and universities report 0 incidents of rape occurring. It's very infuriating, as the question that rises, how are schools supposed to lower statistics when they won't even acknowledge that these events are occurring? And schools and campuses, they advocate that they're going to protect their students as well. This connects to how this lowers the confidence in victims in speaking out about their experiences, as I mentioned earlier, colleges won't even acknowledge that these events are happening and educate their students about this. For instance, only 20% of female student victims ages 18 through 24 report to law enforcement. So there's still that 80% still not reporting these events happening. So it can be inferred that these victims aren't reporting these events due to a lack of self-confidence in themselves and their school's prevention enforcement. So, campus safety implementations. Title IX of the 1972 Education Amendment is a powerful tool used to combat campus violence. The law essentially prohibits sexual harassment, sexual violence, and discrimination on the basis of sex. There's also reporting systems and different support services provided at every university. So what can you do about campus safety? You can buy protection items like pepper spray, self-defense alarms, stun guns, and tasers. Part 2. If you go to parties, stick with your friends and don't let a friend leave a party alone or with someone you don't know. And be wary of any alcoholic beverages and consider buying safety drinking glasses and straws to avoid date, rape, drugs at parties and other events. Part 3. Use the buddy system when taking public transportation. Use campus security escorts and safe rides as well. And never be alone at night or in remote areas, because those are dangerous. And Part 4. Take advantage of safety training. Many campuses offer self-defense classes, or you can always sign up for one at your local YMCA or a recreation center. And also exchange family contact information with your roommates just in case of an emergency, because you never know what might happen. And there's one more thing, a Google survey. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ava. If everybody will just scan the QR code really quickly and take the Google survey for her. That's terrifying that a quarter of people in college are sexually assaulted.
I know, yeah, it is scary.
Yeah, that's terrifying.